Hi, so Charlie Munger recently wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal called Why Should America Ban Crypto? Now, there's actually been a lot of backlash against Charlie for writing this article and things that he said in this. And him being a super legend investor and philosopher, some of it actually comes across maybe a bit strange. So let me go into this in a bit more detail. See, firstly, Charlie talks about the frothiness of the crypto space and how it was full of swindlers and scammers, still is. His words specifically were, "All this wild and woolly capitalism is much like that described in a remark often attributed to Mark Twain, who was thought to have said that a mine is a hole in the ground with a liar on top." Now, he also went on to say how the Chinese have taken the lead and banned crypto, and that in the 1700s, England banned trading of new common stocks for 100 years. In the latter example, Charlie explains how the 100 years that followed were some of the great advancements in human history led by the British. Now, regarding that comment about the British, I don't know the details and the nuance to that, but regarding the comment specifically about the Chinese government, well, Charlie said this: "The Communist government of China recently banned cryptocurrencies because it wisely concluded that they would provide more harm than benefit." Now, the big question here is, but why? I want to unpack this further. But Charlie doesn't go into the details. And why did the Chinese government conclude that it was more bad than good? What are the bad things they identified? What were the good things? We are just left, I think, without any substance for these reasons. Now, I want to say before I go any further here that I'm actually completely agnostic to crypto. Agnostic means I'm not for it and I'm not against it. It's just way outside my area of expertise. I know people like Bill Miller. He's a legendary investor and I admire as a very intelligent, rational human. He has a large amount of his net wealth in Bitcoin. And then on the other side of the fence, there's a trove of other super investors like Warren Buffett and obviously Charlie Munger that are just outright against it. So I think the critique that I have with Charlie at this moment is that most just comes from a lack of information as to why Charlie is so against crypto. I just feel I haven't heard a really compelling reason in the specifics as to why it is so evil. Like, I've heard him say it's rat poison and it's all gambling, but I really just don't know why he thinks this. Now, I think the things that happen with like FTX and all the scams and rug pulls that CoffeeZilla over on his channel talks about, they're all pretty awful and it is pretty disgusting. But then at what point as a society do we need people to just take some responsibility for their actions? What I mean is, like, this has been around forever. Like, there's been snake oil salesmen like 100 years ago. Gambling has been around forever as well. Swindlers and scammers. What about all those Nigerian prince emails from like the 1990s that you heard about going around the internet? We didn't go and ban the internet, and scams are just everywhere. And this is just, I think in the crypto world, just it's more of the same. But I think to just say straight up that Bitcoin is a scam, I don't know whether that's fair on Bitcoin. My gut feel is that we're actually throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. I also just think that not all the actors in the space are going to be bad actors. I don't know if there is any substance to Bitcoin, but there might be. Now, the little that I do know about Bitcoin, it appears to be pretty rock solid. Yeah, it's a lot different to what we're used to, but that doesn't make it bad. Or maybe it is bad, but I just don't know why it is bad. And Charlie, I think, hasn't done a good job in this situation as explaining in details why it is bad. Like, is it because of the incentives that are involved or because he has seen this play out in history before? I just don't know what exactly it is about Bitcoin that he hates. See, on one side, you've got Bitcoin being a tool that governments can't interfere with that might actually have its uses. I can see why that could be used by drug traffickers and criminals and stuff like that. But there's also another side to this. And my friend Justin points out to me that the US government has just way too much debt and is on the verge of bankruptcy. But they are also control of the money supply, so they can get out of a sticky situation. But that leads to more inflation and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. This is not my thing. I am years away from getting my head around how country economic policy and incentives work. But if I was to look at it like from a business angle, the US has about $3 trillion in assets and about $31 trillion in debt. That's a terrible debt ratio. If it was a business, I would say it has way too much debt and I wouldn't go anywhere near it. But I also don't know all the levers that the Fed can pull. And I can see why people can get a little bit scared of the mismanagement of governments. And Bitcoin offers a government-free asset. So if I was Zimbabwean or Venezuelan or Russian, I would have very little trust in my government acting as honorable and rational people with the currency. History suggests that the governments of those places will not do what is in the best interest of the country. So I actually might want something that I can use in other parts of the world and governments can't access. I think it makes sense. And regarding the US and other Western countries, I think it is different because generally speaking, they have strong accounting standards, legal frameworks with dealing with embezzlement, and a culture that just doesn't accept these bad actors. And because of this, I'm about 95% confident in my investments in these currencies. I'm not at 100%, of course, but okay enough for me to make diversified bets in multiple countries that have these traits. And sure, maybe one or two of them might go bad. I don't know. Maybe one of them is actually the US. Honestly, I'm more nervous about having just 2 brokerage accounts. Interactive Brokers is really great. Saxo is pretty good too, but still a lot of my net wealth is tied to just these 2 companies. Even though I have investments inside of those companies, there's a single point of failure there with your particular broker. So I'm actually looking at a 3rd brokerage account at the moment. Maybe I'll even get a 4th. Now, I do think Interactive Brokers is the best, and if you haven't got Interactive Brokers yet, I please recommend you do. You need to diversify. They're overall the safest. It's the best I've found. There's a link in the description to take them for a test run to see what the platform looks like. It's just below in the description. Anyway, Bitcoin appears to provide a place with enough people that have agreed it is valuable. I would say there is just some like die-hard, passionate group of Bitcoiners out there that will just never sell no matter what. They're going to probably die with their Bitcoin. Now, that actually helps the case for Bitcoin, I think, as a store of value. I see it at the moment as comparable to death metal music in the music industry. I know that's probably a bit of a stretch. But think about it. Death metal isn't completely mainstream. It really isn't accepted in most of the world. But for the people that are into it, they are really diehard fanatics. They identify with the culture of death metal. I see them as a bit weird and crazy, but they have such strong beliefs and now biases that the death metal industry will continue. It probably will just continue because there's so many passionate people about it. So I think Bitcoin is like death metal music, and which means there is a solid base of people that will transact with Bitcoin into the future. So I see very little chance that this thing goes to 0, but I have no idea if $1,000 is a fair price, $1 million. Again, I'm agnostic about most of this. Okay, now let's bring this back to Charlie's comments about crypto. See, I think Charlie would agree that humans are unable to see outside of the systems that they rely on. Bitcoin is outside that normal system. So maybe he is not seeing the Bitcoin system for what it is. That's very naive of me to say. I get it. What is more likely is that Charlie has actually a really good understanding, has done a ton of reading, and he's done a ton of thinking about it. And he's come to this conclusion based on all his life experience and knowledge that he's acquired. There probably isn't anyone alive that is more knowledgeable across all the different fields that there is than Charlie. So what is most likely is Charlie has reached to this point of view, but just hasn't articulated it in a way that gets into the minutiae of what exactly is about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that should be banned. So I do hope that Charlie explains in detail with specifics why crypto should be banned. If anyone knows any resources where Charlie has explained in detail why he thinks specifically crypto is not good for society, I would be really interested to learn more. Thanks for getting to the end of this video. Please subscribe if you're enjoying the channel, and I'll have more investing stuff to come. See you soon.